Oh, hi there. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at perfect competition number one. We're going to really start in long-run equilibrium with all three of these pictures, the market and the firm, and then we're going to show what happens when something changes in demand for the firm's products that would lead the firm to earn a profit, or the firm to earn a loss, or the firm to earn so much of a loss that it actually shuts down. So we're going to look at all three of those scenarios in this video. So the first part is we're going to actually draw the same picture 3 times in a row. That way we're in equilibrium. We get really good at that, and then we're going to move out of equilibrium into a short-run equilibrium with profit or loss. So let's get started. First part, market and the firm. And we're going to get really good with our P's and Q's, right? And if I have to do it, I'm believing that you can. We're just going to put all of them on here, right? All of them on here. We'll just go ahead and knock all these bad boys out. Come on, P's and Q's, right? All right, P, Q, and then P and Q. So I'm doing the whole page, right? I got my P's and Q's all taken care of. Now, for the first part, I'm going to draw this market graph. I'm going to put a demand curve. Now I'm going to actually just do one at a time. So we have first a market kind of in equilibrium. We're going to go doot, 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 just like that. Doot, 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 doot. It's helpful if you make the doot, doot noises. There we go, straight across. Marginal revenue equals the demand equals the price. And then we're going to put a marginal cost curve. That was an interesting one. And that's the supply curve. We're going to say QF, and I'm going to put QF1. And then I'm going to put QM1 right here. And I'm going to put P1, and I'm going to put P1 just so we can kind of keep track of this. Because we're going to end up moving a couple of things on this line. Now, the first part is we're going to need a ATC. Now, I know from experience in teaching this class that because this firm's earning a profit, we are not going to need, we don't need the AVC, right? But if the firm's earning a loss, shut down, the loss, that stuff, we need that AVC. So for the second picture and the third picture on the bottom, we're actually going to put the AVC on there. For this one, if I see that the firm is earning a profit, the only reason you need an AVC is if the firm's not earning a profit. So I'm going to leave it off of this one, again, just in the interest of kind of keeping it from getting too messy. So this says that we are in long-run equilibrium. The firm's got kind of long-run zero economic profit, but now demand increases. So let's move the demand curve over here to the right, and I'm going to call it demand 2 just to distinguish them from P1s, QM1s, and all that stuff. So we're going to say that curve shifts up. Maybe there's new tastes and preferences for the good or what have you. So that causes a larger quantity in the market and a higher price in this market. Now, what does that do for the firm, right? This is old hat at this point. We know what's going on over here. But over here, what it actually causes is a higher Mr. DARP. It says Mr. DARP is now way up here, MR2, demand 2, P2. And so Mr. DARP's all the way up there. Well, what the firm's going to do with a new Mr. DARP, first off, is they completely forget about the old Mr. DARP. Pretend like old Mr. DARP is gone. He's not there. He's dead to you. He's your gone friend, right? You've shunned him. The new Mr. DARP is the only line we're going to care about when we talk about how much they're going to produce. So we're going to look for MR equals MC now, but it's a different Mr. DARP, MR2 and MC. So I'm going to go over, and I find the intercepts with the MC curve there. Then I'm going to drop down and find that that's the new quantity that the firm's going to generate. And that shouldn't surprise us, right? Here we have more things being produced in the market at a higher price. And so we have a higher price that this firm is charging for its products. And every firm in the market is producing a little bit more quantity in order to keep up with that higher demand in the market. Now, where's the profit? Now, what we got to do is focus on this as kind of a yellow brick road. If you watch The Wizard of Oz, you know they follow the yellow brick road. I wish I had a yellow pen. We start here and we go down to that ATC because we're going to always compare the price and the ATC when we're looking for profit. So we come down, we hit that ATC, and then we go over. And so I'm coming over from that ATC curve over. Notice I am not going down to the minimum of that ATC. Don't make that mistake. It's a really common issue. And so the profit is actually going to be this little rectangle, this kind of long, skinny rectangle that we just drew right up here. And so it does not go all the way down. It stops at the ATC because that's the average total cost at this quantity. Now, an important observation, the firm's earning a profit. They are not productively efficient anymore. Notice they're not at the minimum of ATC. So we would say that perfectly competitive firms are only productively efficient in the long run, equilibrium. They're not actually productively efficient when they're making a profit. They're a little bit not efficient, but they're okay with that because they're making a profit, right? There's more demand for the products. Now we're going to look in the next video about, well, what happens in the long run? How do they end up not earning that in the long run? We'll talk about that part later. Now let's take a look at, in the short run, the long run equilibrium causing demand to decrease and the firm to shut down. Now, if I know that there's going to be a loss, I know I'm going to need an AVC. And so we'll start here with supply and demand. See, I told you, it makes it a lot more fun if you go and MR equals demand equals the price. And this is the price 1, QM1, and then we got to have a marginal cost curve. That's the supply curve. QF1, all that good stuff. And we're going to start an equilibrium. So that means our ATC comes down, hits its minimum, and comes back up again. Now we're going to see a situation where we need an AVC. So we got to put that AVC down here, and it's got to hit its minimum at that marginal cost, excuse me, and come back up again. AVC. It might take you a few tricks to get it, but we're going to need it. Now, it says that this firm is going to experience the demand go down so much that the firm's going to shut down. And we give the firm's shutdown rule right here of the price is less than the AVC and the ATC, the firm should shut down. And I'll prove to you later why that's the case. But for right now, we're just practicing how to show that. So in other words, we want, if this is P1, and we're going to get to P2 in a second, P2 has to be less than that value, the minimum point of that AVC. So P2 is going to have to be somewhere like down here. And that's going to mean that demand is going to have to fall. I'm kind of working backwards all the way over to here. Demand's going to have to fall a whole lot, right? Demand decreased a whole lot in order for us to get Mr. DARP to go all the way down here. So I was kind of working backwards, knowing that Mr. DARP has to go down so far, it's got to go below the AVC. And then I was like, okay, over here, where do I need to actually make my demand curve shift down to? Now, in the market, we know the price is going to fall because we got less demand. And we know that QM2 is going to be a smaller quantity than QM1. But let's take a look at what happens over on this side. Well, the firm was producing QF1. If they wanted to and they kept producing, they would produce where MR equals MC. That would be here at this quantity. But we actually know that this firm should not produce at all. The firm should shut down. And that's because P2 is less than the AVC. So what this firm actually should do is just shut down. They won't operate. They won't produce that quantity whatsoever. Instead, they're going to take their loss, which is their fixed cost. And we need to show that. Now, the easiest way to show it is actually to look at like any of the quantities and basically draw a line from the ATC to the AVC, and I just picked it at QF2, but you could do it in any quantity. You pick a line in between these two. So you could do it here, you could do it over here. It'd be a little bit messy if you did it all the way on this side. So I find it easier to do it on the left-hand side. You go from ATC down to the AVC, and then you go over, and that amount is actually their loss, right? That's their loss, and it's fixed cost. That's equal to their loss, because this is the AFC, and an AFC times any quantity would actually equal the fixed cost, and that's how much money they lose by shutting down. I'm going to go ahead and label that this is the profit, right? That's profit up here. Okay, so the next one's going to be a little bit easier because it'll actually kind of look a little bit more like the one at the top where we're comparing the price to the ATC. So I'm just going to kind of put a little arrow and say price to ATC, compare price to ATC. And we're actually going to do that in the bottom picture as well, the price to the ATC. So for this one, the firm's going to lose money, but they're actually going to operate at a loss. And again, I'm going to prove to you why they would mathematically be better at doing that than later. We'll prove that to you later, that is. Try to pick up the pace here. Margin revenue, demand, price, marginal cost. It's more fun if you make that noise too. P1, QM1, QF1. Okay, I think that's everything. Now I need ATC. Come down, hit the minimum, come back up. By the way, if you miss that, like where you saw just here, it's not quite there, just put a bigger dot. That's the actual suggestion. Like put a bigger dot. Come down, come back up. Now, this one, the Mr. DARP's going to fall because demand's going to decrease. Mr. DARP's going to come down, but it's actually going to come down and be in between the ATC and the AVC. And what we mean by that is that it's got to be in between this, the AVC's minimum, and this, which is the ATC's minimum. So Mr. DARP, P2, the second P, right, the price 2 is going to have to be in between basically this line and this line. So I'm just going to pick like right here that I'm going to say I want it to fall to that level. And I'm going to work my way backward over here and know that that's where my demand curve needs to fall to. And again, I know that seems a little bit like backwards from how you might be thinking about it, because the demand is actually what's causing this Mr. DARP to change. I'm just showing you that it's a little bit easier to draw it that way. But what is actually the initial event is the demand falling, and that causes Mr. DARP to go down, right? To go down, MR2 equals demand 2 equals price 2. Now, when that happens, the firm has to reassess, should we continue to operate or not? Now, in this case, Mr. DARP didn't fall that low, so the firm's going to operate. Again, I'll show you later why. And what they'll do is produce where the quantity where MR equals MC. So that is MC. The new MR is right here, right? Notice that it's not quite all the way farther down. I'm going to zoom in just a shade so you can actually see my work here. Okay, it's not all the way down here at the minimum point of that AVC. It's like right here. And so then our firm is producing fewer units, which is actually kind of what we would expect given that in the market they're producing fewer units. And then from here to compare the price to the ATC to find the loss. Price to ATC. And at that quantity, at QF2. And so the price is this P2, ATC is way up here. So I go all the way up. Notice ATC at that quantity is higher. So I'm going to come over from that ATC, the new Mr. DARP, and that area of that rectangle, kind of coming down here, is actually our loss here. Now, this amount, even though kind of visually it seems like a larger amount than here, would actually be smaller than if this firm shut down. If this firm shut down, then the fixed cost would actually go all the way down to this AVC and over. And so the fixed cost would actually be larger than this amount of this loss. So if we had just shut down, we'd actually lose more money. So we should operate at a loss temporarily in this circumstance. And I'm going to zoom back out a little bit, and you can kind of see that difference. Again, for this one, it's not going all the way to the Mr. DARP because Mr. DARP went so low. And this one, it's just going to stop at Mr. DARP because that's actually going to help them be better off because Mr. DARP didn't fall below the AVC. So hopefully this helped you understanding kind of how we graph profit and loss in perfect competition coming out of long-run equilibrium. I'll see you next time.